doesn't matter if it's 5 a.m. or it's 2 a.m. Like if I'm still up, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna capitalize on this creativity right now. And so I try not to get stuck into a pigeonhole of like, oh, I have to wake up at 3 a.m. every day. Because for me, I feel like I'm less productive when I force myself because I'm just tired all day long because my body doesn't naturally want to wake up.
Crabby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just finding what works best for you as an individual person and not having to say, oh, well, this guy's right. I have to do it this way or I'm not going to be successful, because that's just not true.
Welcome to the Elo Code Podcast, where we talk about everything from marketing to just general loan bullshit.
On this week's episode of the Elo Code Podcast, we're going to be talking about hustle culture.
Hustle culture.
Yeah. I mean, there seems to be two sides to people's opinions on hustle culture. They're either like all for it or they're like hustle culture is ruining the world.
So you're talking like rise and grind, like just
Rise and grind. Yeah, where it's almost like a fight to see who can get up earliest and work the most hours. But, you know, I think that's just like only a handful of people are taking hustle culture to that extreme. But
Right.
because people are taking it to that extreme, I think everybody's thinking of it as
they have to.
like, yeah, like it's such an extreme. Like they feel obligated to do that. And if they're not doing that, then they're not hustling, which I don't think is true at all.
So this kind of leads to burnout for a lot of people.
I've been burned out from it. Yeah.
So unless you are innately a person that just, you have to be on the go 1,000 miles a minute by nature, it can be really devastating to your mental state.
Yeah. And I think that one of the biggest problems with that is it's comparison. Like we just talked about on another episode, you're always comparing yourself to somebody else and their level of hustle. And so then there's this whole camp of people right now that are so anti-hustle. And they're like, nope, you should, barely ever work. And that's also not the answer either. You're not going to reach your goals if you do that, or as quickly if you do that.
So just because you rise and grind, hustle like crazy, trying to do everything and anything that you possibly can for your business doesn't mean that you're going to be happy and doesn't mean you're going to be successful. It really comes down to figuring out what's going to work for you, your business, and your lifestyle.
Well, you nailed it. So you have to, I think, figure out if your workflow, hustle, whatever, is going to fit into your life plan. Everybody comes up with these goals and they're huge goals and there's nothing wrong with that, but they're forgetting that other part of their life and then they're in it. And I mean, if that's your jam, that's your jam, but is it congruent with the life that you actually want?
I think you are really spot on there with congruent with the life you want. There's a lot of people who don't really know what they want, and we've touched on this before. And you can't fall into that trap of like, well, if Gary Vee's doing it, if this guy's doing it, I just use Gary Vee because like he's like the ultimate like rise and grind guy, and he's even come out and said like, oh, I still sleep. I sleep 8 hours a day, but when I'm on, I'm on.
Yes. So that's the whole thing. Whose definition of hustle are we talking about? Because to me, if I'm working 8 really solid hours a day and I'm like on and I'm showing up, I'm hustling.
Okay, so let's look at this. How many people say they're working 12 to 18 hours a day, but they're only putting in 2 hours of actual solid work?
There's a lot of fluff, especially if you're going into an office setting. And I didn't really understand that until we started working remote. And the time suck that is just, being around colleagues. And I think that there's pros to it. Like they can help get you motivated. They can keep you on the path that you want to be on. But I wasted a lot of time just talking to people. Whereas if I could be in my office where there's no distractions and I work for 8 hours, I'm probably putting in somebody else's 2 to 3 days of work.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, I've always been a fan of work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And I guess it's work smarter and efficient, right? It's like not harder, right? You still got to work hard.
Yeah.
Like, and I've kind of said it wrong too. It's like, oh, I barely work. At times, I barely work.
Yeah.
But
Right
there's
now,
times-
you're working all the time. I mean, you're taking breaks, but you are available and working all day long, and you're staying up late, and your brain is working in the middle of the night, and you get up and work on projects. You're hustling in a totally different capacity, but that's not sustainable long term.
No.
You wouldn't do this level of work
No, when you're trying
indefinitely.
when you're trying to build something and you're building the base,
It's
you
a
have to
lot of
put in
extra
a
time.
lot of work. But then it comes down to how much stuff, and I'm trying to address this too, is when I'm working on stuff, like how much stuff am I just like fluffing, right? Like I think it's a big deal and I think it
Yeah.
needs to be worked on, but it's not moving the needle.
Something that you could delegate to somebody else.
Delegate, or it's not even that big of a deal, but to me it feels like a big deal.
Yeah, you get hung up on things.
Yeah, you can, and I think that's everybody in their business. They can get hung up on things that don't really matter. Instead of focusing on like, all right, what are the top 3 things that are going to get me business right now?
You know, what I think is one of the biggest time sucks. How much time do you spend researching? Not executing, researching.
Mm-hmm. A lot.
A lot.
And I think there's a time and a place for that, but it needs to be
You go down a rabbit hole.
Right.
I think you need to like time block that type of thing.
It has to be in conjunction with getting stuff done. But if you're like, oh, I'd like to learn how to implement a CRM better, but if all you do is go down a rabbit hole of CRMs, but you don't do any of the other things that are going to drive the business, you're screwed
Yeah.
because you haven't put the base in.
Yeah.
And I just heard this thing from Alex Hormozy, and you sent it to me. He said he calls it the 100.
Yes.
And if you can do 100 things every day to move your business along, you're going to see massive success. And those 100 things could be you spent $100 on ads, you called 100 people, you messaged 100 people, or maybe it's you split it up and you spend $50 a day and you message 25 people and you call 25 people. But there has to be 100 outreach activities per day, every single day, if you want to see success fast.
100 for 100 days, he said, will
100 for 100
completely
days.
change your business. But that's true, especially, you know, when we first started out in the mortgage business, we were grinding. I mean, we were constantly available for, I mean, people could call us at 10 o'clock at night and we're like, we'll get that pre-approval for you. Whereas now we're not in that space to do that. But we put the time in and we grinded for, it was more than 100 days, but the amount that it blew up our business was worth it. But one of the reasons too why I wanted to talk about this is because of the, I guess I'd say lost opportunity that I've felt. This year I've really come to it since we had a little bit of a break, you know, refis are dying down. I had a little bit more time, and you turn around and you look at your kids. And, you know, seeing that my baby is going to be a teenager, and it just kind of bitch slapped me in the face of what I did the last 3 years. And I was all about reaching my goals, and I was all about hustling. And I was there, but I wasn't there because I was distracted by, you know, is somebody trying to get a hold of me? I need to get this pre-qual out at night. And so it made me really reevaluate everything that I've been doing, you know, whether that's hiring somebody to take hours so that I don't have to do that. But I did get burned out pretty badly. And I just realized that while I think that there is a time and a place for hustling, like crazy hustling, that it's just not something that is healthy. I don't think it can be healthy for really anybody unless you don't have a family. I feel like that's kind of judgmental to say. Or a support system.
Right.
A solid support system.
And it just, we keep circling back to this because I think it's so important, is designing your lifestyle.
Yeah.
If you are somebody that just, all you do is work because you just love it, it just
Yes,
drives
it's a
you.
hobby.
It's a passion. It's your hobby. It's your everything. Is that healthy? I don't know. But if that's you,
But you're probably not
Lean
feeling
in.
guilty about it
Right.
anyways. This is more, I feel like I wanted to make this more for the people that are feeling some type of way.
and I
because
think it's a lot of people.
I
The great percentage of people are feeling burnt out.
Yeah, because I still see, like, even though I feel really secure in my feelings of what I want my life to look like, how much I want to work to achieve that, I still see those posts that people make on Facebook about, you know, rise and grind. And I'm like, should I be doing that? You know, we did that when we had the gym. It was, okay, if this is important to you, you're going to make time. And that's part of hustling.
Right.
So it, trying to find that line of not having that guilt towards it.
And you don't, like, going back to that, you don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. to be successful. You don't.
No.
But you do have to have quiet time in your day to reflect on your thoughts, on what you're trying to achieve, what your goals are, outlining everything that you've been working on. But for some people, they're like me, I'm a night owl. I am not a morning person. Yeah. And so I use my nighttime to do that. Right. And so why the people that are waking up at 3 a.m. are sleeping, I'm doing what they did in the morning, but the day before the next. So I want people to realize that, like, if your schedule doesn't adhere to the rise and grind, it's okay.
And this is also why we have separate bedrooms.
Yeah. Because me personally, when I have a creative spark or I have an idea, it doesn't matter if it's 5 a.m. or it's 2 a.m. Like, if I'm still up, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna capitalize on this creativity right now. And so I try not to get stuck into a pigeonhole of like, oh, I have to wake up at 3 a.m. every day. Because for me, I feel like I'm less productive when I force myself, because I'm just tired all day long, because my body doesn't naturally want to wake up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just finding what works best for you as an individual person, and not having to say, oh, well, this guy's right, I have to do it this way or I'm not going to be successful, because that's just not true.
And it's success is your own definition.
It's all relative.
It's all relative. It's all relative.
Some people might say, hey, if I can make $3,000 a month, but do nothing, it's all automated, it's all passive income, I'm super successful. Yeah. And to them, that's success, and that's great. And other people are like, if I'm not making $1 million a month, I'm not successful. So it all circles back to designing your lifestyle. Like, what do you need to have to feel comfortable, to feel secure, to feel like you have what you need to be happy, and then design it around that. You don't need any more than that.
Right.
So, yeah, you don't have to rise and grind, but you do have to grind at times.
Yeah, you do. But we can just keep going back to stop comparing yourself to other people. This is your journey.
Right.
Don't look at what other people are doing. And if you do
you, boo? Isn't that what you always said?
Yeah, do you, boo? If you find somebody and you're like, that's the level of success that I want to be at, then I think I like that.
Yeah, I think that's good. Is that all? I think that's it for this one.
I think that's it for this one. Yeah.
We kind of keep circling back to the same things, but it's because these things are so important.
It is so important. And I mean, I read tons of professional development books, business books, and we're constantly circling back to this. And no matter how much time every day I put into, designing my life to be the way that I want to, you always slip into, should I be doing more? And comparing yourself to that person. And maybe I'm not grinding hard enough.
Right. And the only thing anybody you can compare is to yourself.
Yeah.
And if you know you're not doing enough, then step it up.
Yeah.
And if you think you're doing too much and you're getting burnout, then it's time to reflect and say, hey, am I doing too much? There's
nothing wrong with taking a break. And I think that is too one of the things that with this hustle culture, everybody feels like they're constantly grinding and that they will be less for taking a break.
Right.
And that's just not true. You're not worth less if you take some time
or if you
rest,
make less.
Or if you make less. I don't want to make $1 billion. Right. That's not in my life plan.
Right.
I don't want to work that hard. And that's
well, not even that. You don't want to put in the effort for that because you have other things that are important to you, like your family.
Yeah.
And once your kids are off, you might say, hey.
Oh, yeah, maybe then I'll want to be a billionaire. But
well, not even a billionaire, right?
I said billionaire.
Oh, yeah.
No, not millionaire. No, okay. I want to be a millionaire. I don't want to be a billionaire. Like, I just don't want to put forth that much effort right now because my effort is for my kids and for building this business, but it doesn't mean I want to.
Yeah. Exactly.
Be that crazy about it.
Well, cool. Well, thank you guys for watching this episode of the LO podcast. So If you want to see what we're working on, we've really tried to create systems and automations and things to make it more efficient for loan officers to grow their business with video. Check out thelocode.com. We have a bunch of free resources on there. We also have services to help you with your editing and be able to get your content out faster. And please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. It definitely helps the algorithm so more people see this content. And we'll see you guys on the next podcast.
See you later.